You can spend years loving someone who keeps you at an emotional distance. You can be patient with them, stand beside them through difficult moments, listen when they need someone, and continue showing up even when they give very little back. You can offer your time, attention, understanding, and loyalty without demanding much in return. But then the moment you need the same kind of effort from them, the entire dynamic can shift. As soon as you expect them to be there for you in the way you've always been there for them, they may become distant, stop communicating, disappear for a while, or suddenly seem emotionally unavailable. And that is when you may begin turning everything inward. You start asking yourself what you said wrong, what you did differently, or what suddenly changed between you. But sometimes the hardest truth to accept is that their withdrawal wasn't caused by something being wrong with you. Their behavior may have far more to do with what they are trying to protect inside themselves than with your value as a person. People with avoidant tendencies aren't necessarily committed to relationships in the traditional way you might expect. Very often, their strongest loyalty is toward their sense of freedom and self-sufficiency. Once you understand that, many of their confusing behaviors become easier to recognize. You stop spending every day searching for an explanation. You stop believing you have to become better, easier, quieter, or more lovable just to keep someone close. You stop assuming that every period of distance is your responsibility to fix. Instead, you begin seeing the pattern for what it is. One of the biggest misconceptions about avoidant attachment is that people with these tendencies don't want love. That's not always true. Many avoidant people genuinely desire intimacy. They can develop strong feelings, become deeply attached, care about someone sincerely, and enjoy having a meaningful connection. The difficulty begins when that connection becomes emotionally significant enough to make them feel exposed. Closeness can make them feel dependent. Dependence can make them feel vulnerable. Vulnerability can make them feel as though they are losing control of themselves. For some avoidant people, independence isn't simply about having personal space or enjoying time alone. It becomes connected to emotional safety. Being completely self-reliant can make them feel protected because nobody can dictate how they feel, influence their choices, or gain enough emotional importance to hurt them. So when someone begins to matter deeply, an internal warning system may activate. Somewhere beneath their conscious thoughts, there can be a belief that says, if I need this person, they can hurt me. If I become too attached, I might lose myself. If I allow them too close, I could become trapped. And once those fears become active, creating distance can feel safer than staying connected. You may notice it in small ways at first. Their messages become less frequent. Conversations lose some of their warmth. Plans become harder to arrange. They seem less available than before. Sometimes the shift happens slowly, and sometimes it feels as though it happened from one day to the next. You're left wondering how a relationship that seemed so positive suddenly became so confusing. But from their perspective, the connection may have crossed a point where it started feeling too serious, too real, or too emotionally demanding. Think about what often happens at the beginning of a relationship with an avoidant person. Everything can feel easy. There is attraction, excitement, curiosity, laughter, and a sense of freedom. They enjoy being around you because the connection hasn't yet become threatening to their independence. There are no major expectations. They don't feel emotionally responsible for another person's happiness. They can simply enjoy the relationship. Then time passes. You become familiar. They realize you genuinely care about them. They recognize that you're becoming important. They begin to understand that the relationship isn't temporary or casual anymore. And that can be exactly when their defenses become stronger. What once felt like closeness may suddenly feel like pressure. Their mind can begin connecting emotional importance with the possibility of losing freedom. So instead of moving closer, they instinctively create space. If you respond to that distance by asking for reassurance, they may tell you that you're demanding too much. They might call you needy, overly emotional, or too attached. But beneath that reaction can be a much more complicated reality. The relationship has become important enough to activate fears they haven't learned how to manage. This pattern isn't limited to romantic relationships either. It can appear in friendships as well. You may be the person who always picks up the phone, listens to their problems, supports them when life becomes difficult, and makes yourself available whenever they need you. Yet when you are the one who needs support, suddenly they're unavailable. Your messages sit unanswered. Plans are postponed or canceled. When you explain that their behavior hurt you, they may become defensive, instead of engaging with what you're saying. They may emphasize their independence and act as though your desire for mutual effort is an unreasonable demand. That's what makes this dynamic so confusing. They may genuinely appreciate everything you do for them, but struggle when the relationship requires them to take equal emotional responsibility. It doesn't automatically mean they are cruel or intentionally using you. Avoidant people can be compassionate, intelligent, successful, caring, and genuinely good-hearted. Their struggle may be that their fear of dependence is stronger than their ability to remain emotionally consistent when closeness becomes uncomfortable. And this creates a cycle that can become incredibly draining. You move toward them and they pull away. You try harder and they create even more space. Eventually, you stop pursuing them and suddenly they come back. For a while, everything feels good again. The connection returns, the warmth comes back, and you begin believing that perhaps things are finally different. Then intimacy increases again, their defenses return, and the entire cycle starts over. After repeating this enough times, you become exhausted trying to figure out the perfect response. Should you pursue them? Should you leave them alone? Should you communicate more? Should you say less? Should you wait? Should you accept their behavior? But the deeper issue isn't simply how much space you're giving them. The real issue is what they choose when closeness begins challenging their need for independence. Not every person with avoidant tendencies has the same level of difficulty. Someone may strongly value freedom and still be capable of commitment, compromise, communication, and emotional accountability. They can need plenty of personal space while still understanding that a healthy relationship requires two people to participate. But someone with deeply rooted avoidance may repeatedly choose emotional comfort and distance whenever intimacy becomes difficult. That's why the question shouldn't always be, how do I get this person to choose me? A more important question is, can I genuinely be happy with the kind of relationship this person is currently capable of giving me? Love doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your emotional needs simply because someone else is uncomfortable with intimacy. Maybe you're someone who genuinely enjoys independence. Maybe you don't need constant contact or continuous reassurance. Maybe you're perfectly comfortable giving your partner plenty of room. If that arrangement genuinely satisfies you, then the dynamic may not be as painful. But you have to be honest with yourself about what you actually need. Most people don't simply want someone who occasionally cares. They want to feel important to the person they love. They want a partner who is willing to communicate, adjust, compromise, make room for them, and show through actions that the relationship matters. That's where an avoidant relationship can become especially painful. You're trying to create emotional security with someone whose instinct is to search for an exit when the connection becomes too serious. So if you're involved with someone who repeatedly withdraws, the first thing you need to do is stop automatically interpreting their behavior as a judgment of you. When they become distant, don't immediately assume you caused it. Their withdrawal doesn't prove that you're too much, too emotional, too needy, or difficult to love. It may be connected to emotional patterns that existed long before you ever entered their life. They may have learned somewhere along the way that closeness comes with danger. Perhaps they learned that depending on someone means losing control. Perhaps vulnerability became associated with disappointment or rejection. Whatever created that pattern, you didn't invent it, and you cannot personally erase it simply by loving them harder. The next thing you need is a clear boundary. Without boundaries, someone can become accustomed to giving you very little while still expecting you to remain available. They may disappear for days, communicate only when convenient, return when they want comfort, and discover that you're still waiting for them every time. If you continue accepting that pattern without consequences, the dynamic has very little reason to change. Be honest about what you need. You might tell them that consistency matters to you, that you need to understand where you stand, and that you want a relationship where both people make an effort. But your boundary must actually mean something. Don't create an ultimatum you have no intention of enforcing. A boundary isn't about controlling another person. It's about deciding what you will and will not continue participating in. You shouldn't have to survive on occasional affection simply because you're terrified that asking for more will cause someone to leave. If basic emotional consistency is important to you, you're allowed to say that. You also need to ask yourself whether the relationship can realistically continue in its current form. Are you accepting this person as they actually are, or are you staying because you're convinced that one day they will become the person you've been waiting for? Those are two very different things. Avoidant patterns can change. People can develop self-awareness. They can learn healthier communication. They can work through old emotional wounds and become more comfortable with intimacy. Professional therapy can help someone understand where their defenses come from and develop healthier relationship skills. But you cannot build your future around the assumption that another person will eventually change. Look at what they are capable of giving you today. Can you live with the inconsistency? Can you tolerate the amount of distance they need? Can you remain emotionally healthy if they repeatedly retreat whenever things become more intimate? Can you be satisfied if you don't consistently feel like a priority? If the honest answer is yes, then perhaps the relationship can work. But make that decision based on reality, not potential. Don't fall in love with the person you believe they could become while ignoring the person they are right now. Something powerful happens when you stop fighting reality. You stop chasing their attention. You stop trying to convince them that you're worth choosing. You stop analyzing every message, every silence, every delayed response, and every change in their mood. You stop creating elaborate explanations for behavior that repeatedly leaves you hurt and confused. And that's when you begin taking your power back. Someone else's inability to show up emotionally does not determine your worth. Their fear of intimacy doesn't make you less lovable. Their need for distance doesn't prove that you weren't enough. You deserve a relationship where you don't constantly have to wonder where you stand. You deserve someone who wants to be present, not someone who only becomes available when distance makes the relationship feel safe again. Once you understand that, one of two things can happen. The avoidant person may recognize that you're no longer chasing them. They may realize that your availability isn't automatic and that the connection could actually be lost. Sometimes that realization becomes a turning point. It can encourage someone to confront their behavior and begin doing the emotional work they previously avoided. Or you may decide to leave, and leaving can create something equally valuable. It can give you the opportunity to eventually build a relationship with someone who can meet you emotionally without requiring you to fight for basic connection. Notice what changed in both situations. The turning point wasn't you finding the perfect strategy to control them. It was you stopping the chase. You stopped overgiving. You stopped trying to prove yourself. You accepted that their desire for independence might be stronger than their willingness to build the kind of relationship you want. Acceptance doesn't mean you approve of everything. It means you stop arguing with reality. Another important part of this dynamic is the anxious avoidance cycle. Often, the person who desperately wants closeness becomes paired with someone who becomes uncomfortable with that same closeness. One person seeks reassurance, consistency, connection, and emotional security. The other person experiences those needs as pressure and starts moving away. The anxious partner may then begin doing all the emotional work. They study every behavior. They become more careful with their words. They give more space. They become more patient. They try different communication styles. They repeatedly adjust themselves, hoping they'll eventually discover the exact formula that makes the relationship feel safe for the avoidant person. Meanwhile, the avoidant partner may complain about being pressured or say that their partner expects too much. But sometimes the anxious person's needs aren't unreasonable at all. Wanting consistency isn't excessive. Wanting reliability isn't excessive. Wanting to feel appreciated isn't excessive. Wanting your partner to communicate and participate isn't excessive. Those are normal needs within a healthy relationship. The problem is that someone with strong avoidance may experience those normal needs as a threat to their freedom. Instead of hearing, "I want to feel closer to you," they may emotionally interpret it as, "You're trying to control me," so they pull back. And then the anxious person's fear increases. The more the avoidant withdraws, the more anxious the other person becomes. The more anxious they become, the harder they try to restore the connection. And the harder they try, the more pressure the avoidant person feels, so they withdraw even further. That cycle can continue for years. Eventually, one person becomes emotionally exhausted, breaks down, gives up, or walks away. Then the avoidant partner may genuinely wonder why everything suddenly ended. But the problem wasn't necessarily that the anxious person became too much. The deeper problem was that the relationship never developed the emotional security both people needed. If you recognize anxious tendencies in yourself, understand this clearly: you cannot heal someone else's avoidance through the intensity of your love. You can't make someone secure simply by being endlessly patient. You can't prove your worth enough to make another person comfortable with vulnerability, and you can't give so much understanding that their fear disappears. Eventually, you have to stop trying to solve a problem that belongs to another person. You can accept the relationship with all of its limitations, or you can decide that leaving is healthier for you. But spending years trying to pull someone toward intimacy while they continue protecting their distance can slowly damage your confidence, your peace, and your sense of who you are. Now, another question often comes up. Can an avoidant person genuinely love someone? Yes, they absolutely can. Avoidant tendencies don't automatically make someone's feelings fake. They can experience real affection, attachment, attraction, loyalty, and love. The difficulty is that their capacity to express and sustain those feelings may be restricted by how much independence they require to feel emotionally safe. They may feel deeply connected when there is enough breathing room. They may be comfortable when you aren't asking for very much. They may express affection when the relationship feels light, flexible, and free from emotional expectations. But when love begins requiring vulnerability, reliability, accountability, deeper communication, or emotional dependence, their defenses may become active. It's almost as if there is an invisible limit to how close they can comfortably allow someone to become. Everything may feel wonderful up to a certain point. Then the relationship crosses that internal threshold, and suddenly their behavior changes. They become colder. They need space, they withdraw, they start questioning the relationship. They may convince themselves that things have become too serious. Often they aren't consciously trying to hurt you. Their nervous system may simply be responding with a defense they've learned over time. Their feelings can be genuine, while their capacity for intimacy remains limited. Understanding that distinction is extremely important. You can recognize that someone's love is real without deciding that the way they love is sufficient for you. The question isn't only, does this person love me? The more important question is, can the way this person loves me meet my emotional needs? For many people, love that only feels comfortable when there is distance simply isn't enough. Most people don't want to be partially chosen. They don't want a relationship where emotional intimacy has a permanent ceiling. They want someone who can communicate, participate, compromise, and remain present when things become difficult. If that's the relationship you want, an avoidant person may simply not be the right match for you. And recognizing that doesn't make you selfish or impatient. It means you're being honest about what you need. But if you're the avoidant person listening to this and realizing that much of it describes you, don't turn that awareness into shame. Recognizing your pattern is actually the first opportunity you have to change it. You may believe that protecting your independence is what keeps you safe. You may tell yourself that you don't need anyone, that depending on someone makes you vulnerable, or that keeping people at a distance protects you from being hurt. But there is a major difference between healthy independence and emotional isolation. Being independent is healthy. Being unable to allow anyone close enough to know you is something different. Human beings need connection. We need people who understand us, support us, accept us, and allow us to feel emotionally safe. If you spend your entire life building walls around yourself, those walls may protect you from rejection and disappointment, but they can also prevent love from reaching you. That doesn't mean you need to become dependent on another person. That's not the goal. The goal is to become aware of what you're actually doing and why. Start paying attention to the exact moment you feel the urge to withdraw. Ask yourself whether you genuinely need time alone, or whether you're becoming uncomfortable because someone has started getting emotionally close. Those two experiences can feel similar, but they are not the same. Sometimes solitude is healthy. Sometimes you really do need quiet, personal space or time to recharge. But sometimes the desire to escape is simply your nervous system trying to move away from vulnerability. If you have strong avoidant tendencies, ask yourself some difficult questions. What am I actually afraid will happen if I let someone get close? Do I fear losing my identity? Do I fear being controlled? Do I fear becoming dependent? Do I fear being abandoned after I finally trust someone? Do I secretly worry that if someone truly knows me, they will discover that I'm not enough? There is usually something underneath the avoidance. Until you understand what that fear is, you'll continue repeating the same pattern. You'll push away people who genuinely care. You'll convince yourself that being alone is easier. You'll create reasons why relationships are too complicated or not worth the trouble. From the outside, you might appear completely successful. You could have a career, friends, achievements, hobbies, financial stability, and an impressive level of independence. But none of those things automatically protect a person from loneliness.
One of the most painful consequences of extreme avoidance is spending years building walls and then wondering why nobody ever gets close enough to truly know you.
There may still be a part of you that wants to be loved, accepted, understood, and chosen. But if you've learned to associate needing someone with weakness, you'll suppress that desire. Then, when people eventually leave, you may tell yourself that they were too needy or expected too much. But sometimes, the deeper truth is that you never allowed them enough access to genuinely know you. If you recognize yourself in this, start doing the work. Therapy can be useful. Honest self-reflection can be powerful. Pay attention to your emotional reactions rather than immediately acting on them. Notice when you want to run. Notice what happened immediately before that feeling appeared. Ask yourself what you're protecting and why. And ask yourself one particularly important question. What do I believe would happen if I allowed someone to truly matter to me? Your mind may immediately create the worst possible scenario. You may imagine losing yourself, being betrayed, being rejected, or becoming trapped. But when you slow down and examine those fears, you may discover that the danger you're reacting to isn't necessarily happening in the present relationship. Sometimes you're responding to an old emotional pattern that is still trying to protect you. And if you're currently involved with an avoidant partner, understanding their behavior isn't enough. You also need to know how to protect your own emotional well-being while responding to the pattern. You can understand an avoidant person's fears without sacrificing your own emotional needs. Love should never require you to chase, prove your worth, or accept constant uncertainty. Sometimes, choosing yourself means letting go of someone who cannot meet you where you are. The right connection won't make you beg for closeness. It will make you feel safe being loved.